This is Gemara Bava Basra Daf Vav, and we're holding on Daf Vav and Aleph. We're 2 lines from the top, and we just began an incredible shaila. Just to scroll up for a moment, just to see the shaila again in the bottom of Hey Amid Beis. The Gemara asked, "Ibayi lehu tavu la'acher zman." If the lender went to the buyer and he asked for the money after the time for repayment, la'achar zman, v'amar loy, and the borrower, the loiva, responded, piraticha b'toich zmani, I paid within the right amount of time. What is the halacha? What's the shayla? Mi amrina b'machazaka amrina mali l'shaker. Do we say that he has a mali l'shaker? What's a mali l'shaker? Mali l'shaker is a migu. What's a migu? The bottom Rashi taught us in the bottom of Hamid Beis. He could have said praticha bizmani. If he would have said, I paid you back at the right time, he would have been believed. Therefore, if he said, I paid you back b'toich zmani, even though we said yesterday, chazaka, people don't pay back early, still, he has an M on it because he could have said, I paid back right now. So do we say b'makim chazaka, even though the chazaka says you didn't pay back, but b'makim chazaka we say mali l'shaker. Oidelma, which is really what we're holding right now on the top of Vavam and Aleph. Oidelma b'makim chazaka lo yarmina mali l'shaker. That is the shaila of the Gemara, an incredible, fundamental shaila in the world of migu, in the world of chazaka. How does it work? Says the Gemara, Tashima. Let's bring a rayo. We learned in our Mishnah, we learned as we quoted yesterday, when 2 people have to build a fence, there's a chazaka that they each gave like they had to. Ad sheyavi rayo, unless he brings a proof, shaloi nasan, unless he brings a proof that he did not pay. Hey chidami, what's the case, says the Gemara. If they came with a claim after the time of repayment, and he said, I pay back at the right time, shita. Of course he's believed, because that's the regular case of saying praticha at the right time. Elalav, what must the case be? That he said, I paid back early. And still, Alma, what do we see? Says the Gemara, we can prove. Afilu b'makom chazaka amrinon. Mali l'shaker. Migu b'makom chazaka amrinon, says the Gemara. No raya. Why not? Shiny hacha, 7 lines down. The chol safa v'safa zemanehu. Every row of stones has its time, and therefore there's no mali l'shaker in such a case. There's no chazaka, I should say, in such a case, because every row has to be built eventually. Tashema, says the Gemara, I'll bring you a different raya. We said above 4 amos to build a fence. But if he has another fence nearby and he wants to put a roof on top of both, again, the same raya. Why is he not believed? Alma, what do we see? Now it's the exact opposite raya. We don't say mal shaker. Says the Gemara, no raya shaniachal to Amar mi yemer de machayvli rabbanon, because he thinks to himself, who says that the rabbanon are going to be machayev me, and therefore we don't have a chazaka for such a scenario. So finally, says the Gemara, Amar le Ravacha brei de Rav Ravashi. Let's look elsewhere for a raya. Tashema manalibi alcha amar loyhein. If the person says, you owe me a money, and he responds, yes, indeed, I do owe you a mana. Lamachar amrla, the next day he says, Tanayoli, you admitted that you owe me money, so please pay up. I already gave it to you. If he says, I already paid you, then pater, then he is believed, then he's pater. If he says, I don't owe you anything, then chayif. So my love, says the Gemara, what is the case? Nesativ lacha, what does it mean? I've given it to you. Tomar le, that he said to him, praticha bizmani. Ein l'chabiyadi. What does it mean when he says, I don't have anything of yours? Damar le beraticha b'toich zmani. And yet, even though he's tithing, I paid back early. And we said that he's obligated. What do we see? He says the Gemara Alma. Alright, that we don't have a malila shaker. Says the Gemara Loi, no, right? What does that mean? Lehadam. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. The whole case never happened. Damar mar, kol haimer loy lavisi, kaimer loy parati dami. For someone to say I never borrowed as if he said loy parati dami, and that's why he's not believed. So the Gemara tried numerous attempts as proving whether we say mali l'shaker b'makayim chazaka. And the Gemara does not have a conclusive proof. 12 lines from the wide lines, the Gemara continues, quoting the next case in the Mishnah. Samach loy kaisel acher megagalav esakol. That what happens if the second neighbor puts another wall parallel to the first wall? Then we say he has to pay for the entire wall, as he showed clearly he's happy with that first wall being there, as he's now building off of that. Amar Ravuna, says Ravuna, Samach lepalga. If he put a wall next to half of the wall, Samach lekula, by using half the wall, it's as if he used the entire wall. Rav Nachman Amar, no. L'may desamach samach, l'may deloi samach loi samach. So we have a machlaikas. We just said that if there's a wall and then the neighboring person builds his own wall next door, that shows he's happy with the original wall. The question is, at what level is he happy? Says Rav Huna, as much as, regardless if he built his wall, half the wall, the whole wall, he's obligated for the whole thing. Says Rav Nachman, no, that which he is, that which he isn't, he isn't. Says the Gemara, Maide Ravuna is Maide Bekarna Vilufta. If it's a corner, then says Ravuna, then you only pay for that part of the wall that you actually use. Maide Rav Nachman Ba'afriza V'kavata Dik Shuri. Rav Nachman is a Maide by a frizika, which is a large beam, as Rashi over here says, about 8 lines from 15 lines to the wide lines, 8 arach va'av, a thick big beam, just like to put the other beams on top of it. In that case, Rav Nachman is masking your chayav for the whole thing. Uvikavata, or the kashura, or a setting for a crossbeam. In either of these cases, he clearly shows that he's utilizing the entire other wall, and therefore you're obligated in the whole thing. Amar Ravuna, says Ravuna, similar din, Beikai loy havi chazaka. Says Ravuna, Beikavi, you build a window. Loy havi chazaka, is not a chazaka, as if he built the whole thing. V'af al gaf, ta'avet le himlati. And even if he made himlati, even if he made casings for the beam, there's still no proof that the neighbor is chayiv. You know why? Because he could say, I said to myself, if at some point you're going to try to make good with me, you're going to repay me some of the money, my wall doesn't have to be damaged. And therefore, that's why I'm building this part now. Meaning not that by building it does it show I'm really happy with the other wall, but rather if at some later date you're going to want to make good, then I want to now build in the parts that are going to be attached to the wall, etc. Says the Gemara. Omar Rav Nachman. Teaches Rav Nachman. Achzik lehordai. If someone has a chazaka, what does he have a chazaka? Laharidai, to rest rafters on his neighbor wall. Loi achsek likshuri. Likshuri achsek lahardi. If I have a chazaka for a hordi to put rafters, it's not a chazaka to put on the big beam, the kshuri. But if I have a chazaka for the kshuri to put a thick beam on my neighbor's wall, then it is a chazaka lahordi for the rafters for the smaller beams. And of course, because if you have a larger chazaka, certainly you could place a smaller item. Rav Yosef Amar, Two lines of the wide lines. Achzek lohordi, achzek likshuri. It's the same thing. Igadi Amri, another lashon Amar Rav Nachman. Achzek lohordi, achzek likshuri. Likshuri, achzek lohordi. And Amar Rav Nachman, achzek lenitfi, achzek le shevchi, achzek le shevchi, loy achzek lenifti. So in this lashon, Rav Nachman comes along, and Rav Nachman says similarly, if you have the rights for linatfi, for the rainwater dripping, then achzik l'shevchi, you can even pour more water on that area. Achzik l'shevchi, if you have a chazaka to pour the rainwater, then you don't have a chazaka for the drip. Rav Yosef Amar, afilu achzik l'shevchi, achzik l'nitfi, that the chazaka goes both ways. And of course, this has to do with which one is more. Which one is more of a big deal, that when you have a chazaka for one, it's going to work for the other. Ikati Amri, a third way of learning, or second way of learning the second part. Amrav Nachman, Achsel Shevchi, Achsel Nitzi, Achsel Shevchi, Avalit Tzrifa de Urbani. But for the Tzrifa de Urbani, a term that we've had way back when in Gemara in Sukkah, we have to be learning that the Tzrifa de Urbani, the willow branches, they made like a willow hut out of these things, light. And Rav Yosef Amar, even for that you have a chazaka. And Rav Yosef Ovda, Rav Yosef did a story b'tzrifa to Orvani on his own, that he said that when that which is coming off of the shack of a roof was even composed of these willow branches, Rav Yosef felt that there is a chazaka in such a case. And again, each of these things are trying to figure out which is a larger chazaka. If I have a chazaka to use your wall, to use your field for a smaller thing, then we say kol shekain for a larger thing. And in the last line, Amrav Nachman Amrav Ravua Mascher Bayis Lechaveroi. If someone rents a bayis, someone rents a house, an apartment for his friend, Bebira Gidaila, in a larger house, Mishtame, she's allowed to use Bizizia Ubikasleha. You're allowed to use the beams, and you're allowed to use the holes in the walls, Ad Dalit Amais, until 4 Amais, that when you rent something, it's the norm. And what's included is to use the larger beams and to use the walls, the holes in the wall to put your stuff in, Ad Dalit Amais. Similarly, says the Gemara in the second line of Avav Beis, the thickness on the wall to store objects, in a place in which there's a minhag to put objects there. However, you're not allowed to use that part of the wall to make a whole gathering over there. And again, trying to figure out at what level is the norm of using your friend's stuff. Rav Nachman Tidei Omar Afilu Betarbitz Apadni. You're allowed to even use the hall to make a party. Why? Because you could go through that entranceway. That even Rav Nachman says lie. This is a rachava, storage area behind the apartment, behind the house. Everyone agrees is not included. Rav Amar, no, even that afilu rachava shachari abatim is included in the rental. So multiple levels. How much is included when one rents an area of a bira gedayla from his friend? Omar Ravina teaches Ravina. Hi Kshura. Now this comes really back to where we started. Hi Kshura Dematalasa. Says Ravina, if you have a beam which is Dematalasa, that the beam is used for shade. I apologize, we just lost the amud. Here it is. Hi Kshura Dematalasa. Ad Tlaisin Yamin Lo Yahavi Chazaka. That if you have a beam that's built for shade, that's resting on your neighbor's wall, until 30 days, it's not considered a chazaka, and he can tell you to remove your beam. Babasar tlasin yaimin have chazaka. Now let's say that which you rested on your friend's wall was a sukkah, which is a mitzvah. Then what numbers does it depend upon? Ad Shiva Yamin lo have chazaka. Basa Shiva Yamin have chazaka, because in the world of sukkah, allowing him to have the sukkah there for the entirety of sukkah creates the chazaka. And continues the Gemara, V'chavre betina. And if you put the beam onto the wall with tina, with cement, and the neighbor didn't say anything, louder, havi chazaka. So different levels, how much you have to show the utilization of the friend's wall in order to create a chazaka. Amar Abaye. Continues Abaye, we're all 14 lines down. The first one is Shnei Batim B'Shnei Sidei Rishus Harabim. We have two houses on two sides of the street. Zeh Yisamaka L'Chatzi Gagov, Zeh Yisamaka L'Chatzi Gagoy. Each one has to make a fence for his wall. V'zeh Shaloi Keneged Zeh. And this one makes it not opposite. This one, Umadif, and each one has to extend his wall a little bit further. Basically, if we have two, let's show it this way, we have two opposing houses. So each roof has to build his wall, and you have to make it in a way that you can't see into the other property, which is what the Gemara really asks now. My area, Rishus Harabim, why are you telling me this is the case? Which are two houses on either side of a Rishus Harabim, Rishus Hayachid, Nami. Even in Rishus Hayachid, the same din should be. Explains the Gemara, Rishus Harabim is a bigger chedish. Ma'u detema, that if your house is neighboring on Rishus Harabim, you know what I would have thought? Name alay saif saif abos l'stayu name and name Rishus Harabim. I would have thought that either way I could tell you that you have to make a fence so that the people in the street don't see you. And therefore, Kamash Malon Abaye therefore is teaching us that no, Tamar Le Rabin Biyamama Chazili Balayla Loi Chazili, because he corresponds to him that no, the public only sees me during the day, and at night they don't see me. But so the Gemara is explaining that if there are two opposing roofs, and we just said that each has to build a wall a little bit not directed to the other, so each one could do their private things on the roof. Says the Gemara, what's the chiddush of Rishus Harabim? This din should apply anywhere. Explains the Gemara, it's a massive chiddush. You would think you have your house on the side of Rishus Harabim, so you would think, anyways, it's not a private matziv. So either way, you have to put up a fence. Why are you bothering me? Explains the Gemara, no, he has a good taina. The anyways that it's a public place that's only with regard to daytime usages. But says the Gemara, nighttime usages, only you, the opposing house, will see me, and that's the reason why they have to each build the fence in a mannerism that they won't be able to see into each other's fields. Inami, another pshat, Rabim ki kamina chazili. The rabbim only sees me when I'm standing. Li chazili. Ki asivna loy chazli. If I sit on my roof, they don't see me. But chazisli bein ki amina, bein ki asivna. Whether I'm standing, whether I'm sitting, you're able to see me. And furthermore, rabbim ki ma'ayinu chazli. Rabbim only see me if they're ma'ayin. If they look, they have to look upward onto my roof. If the public doesn't look, they don't see me. But you, my neighbor, with your opposing wall, you even see me, and that's the reason why each one is obligated to build a fence in the way that it will block the view, the sight of the other person, so each can be able to do their private matters on their own roof. Amar Mar, let's delve a little bit deeper into this din of Abaya. Says the Gemara, two lines from the white lines, Pshita. This whole din is Pashit. You know what the chiddush is? V'avid. One of them makes the fence first. I would think the other guy could say, Shekol Ozin. Oh, excuse me, we just lost the page. One more time. I would think that the neighboring person could say, Shekol Ozinka va'aved es kula. You made your fence. You know what? Shekol Ozinka, take the expense of building the rest of the fence. Va'avdi et kula, and you build it, meaning I'll pay for it. But you have to build the whole fence as you started. Kamash Mallah, no, Damarle At. My type of have this, Misham Divis Yari. Ishtecha. What's the reason why you didn't build a roof in the fence in the first place on your roof? Mishum demitari ashitcha. Because your house's wall will be damaged by the weight of the fence. Ananami mitar le ashita. Meaning, the guy could say, you don't want to build a fence because it's a heavy endeavor. Guess what? I don't either. So I started. Now you have to do your half on your side of the fence. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel Gaga Samach Lechatz Chaveiroi Oisle Maka Gavod Dalet Amos Aval Bein Gag LeGag Loi. For Rav Nachman Didei Amar Einoi Zakuk LeDalet Amos Aval Zakuk LeMechitzas Asara. You don't have to build 10 tefachim, but you got to build at least a mechitza of 10 tefachim. Lamai. Ela has a re'iyah. If the thing we're concerned about is that one person's able to see the other damage through sight. Arba amos, they need 4 amos, you can't see in. Ela nitzvahs alav kiganov b'misibas ba'almas hagya. And if the whole reason is that we don't want them to look like they're a ganif, then b'misibas alvis hagya, a boundary marker would be enough. And if it's for goats and sheep, that they're not going to walk into the property. You should have to build a fence high enough that he can't jump over. So says the Gemara, for that, to build a boundary marker, he could say, for that, he could say, I'm not interested in building such a big fence. I'll put a boundary marker and kol tov. You want a big fence, you should build it, says the Gemara. So from there, we don't have a raya. And we conclude with one last shayla. If your fence is taller than the roof of your friend's house, ein is kakin loy. My love, ein is kakin loy. Klal loy, ein is kakin loy. Dalet amos. Mechitza asara. But you will have to put up a mechitza of asara. Itmar shtei chatzeira izul mal mizu amar Ravuna tachtoi bana mikineg devoila ve'elyon bana mikideg devoila. Rav Chisda amar elyon mesayeh milamata ubayne. The elyon helps the bottom guy and builds together. Tanik was there. Rav Chisda shtei chatzeira izul mal mizu amar elyon harini bana mikineg the top guy can't say I'm just going to build the opposite mivaila el mesayeh milamata ubayne, and they'll be able to build. Then inay zakuk loy. And from here we really start to see, and with this we're going to pick up the concept of hezik re'iyah, that if I have a property and you could see in, you're damaging me, and therefore we have to build appropriate fences so you can't see into each other's property. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmayu.